What's up, everybody? Skorch the Fears. I think this is like episode 48 or something. We've got the great Lauren Hardy. I'm excited to have you. I remember, I don't know if I told you this when I first met you, or when we first were emailing, but you were one of the people I remember listening to while I was starting Driving for Dollars, like 2.5 years ago when I started getting in the business. So I want to say it's pretty cool that you came on today. And yeah, I truly appreciate it. And yeah, welcome to Skorch the Fears.
Thanks for having me. No, I didn't know that. Very flattered.
Yep, it was good. I remember because I was also in California, right? So I was like, it
Oh,
was
yeah.
interesting because you were telling me like your whole story with California and how you were like struggling in California and then you started going virtual. But
Yeah.
we'll get all into that. So first question that I always like talking about is the mindset issues that new wholesalers and new real estate investors deal with. Sorry. First, introduce yourself, say what you're doing, all of that type of stuff, just for the people who don't know who you are.
Awesome. Well, my name is Lauren Hardy, and I've been a real estate investor for 10 years. I started when I was 25 years old. I started when I had my first daughter. She was 1 year old. I had a full-time corporate job, and I really would have just done anything to just get out of that corporate job. It really didn't matter to me what it was. It just so happened that my brother started flipping houses a couple years before that time. So he made the suggestion, you should try flipping houses because you can make, you could just do like 1 or 2 deals and you'll probably make just about as much as you do in your current salary situation, which at the time was about $52,000 a year. So it really wasn't much.
Gotcha.
So that was my start. I started in my backyard, Orange County, California, arguably one of the highest priced areas in the nation, also very saturated with investment activity. So it's a very challenging place to do business. There is still people that invest here and do deals here. But for me, I was flipping houses in my backyard, but it just started getting more and more difficult to get that deal. And I always was a little curious about what was going on in other states. I noticed that other people that were in other states didn't seem to have the struggles that I was having. Like they didn't have to spend as much in direct to seller marketing to get that one deal. They didn't have to make as many offers to get that one deal.
Right.
And there was just this deal consistency that I was really craving. I call California elephant hunting. It's kind of like, you get that one big elephant. It's like, great, but it might take you a while to like find that.
Right.
And the out of state stuff is a little bit more squirrel hunting. They're kind of everywhere. And there's more deal volume. So I was craving the deal volume, at this point in my career now, kind of fast forward, right? A lot had changed for me. I had 2 kids now, mouths to feed. I'm a single mom. So I needed that deal consistency to be able to sleep at night. So I went virtual, and that's kind of where most of you guys know me is, from my virtual stuff that I do. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me and my background.
No, I love it. Yeah, 100%. I 100% feel the same thing with California. Like I was super stubborn. So I was like, no, I don't care. I'm living in San Francisco. I'm going to like make it happen. But it would have been so much easier if I had done I don't know, Oklahoma or like any of those other small ones. Cause I feel like just at the beginning, you need just like 5K base hits just to like start getting it going. And like in California, that I think it's the best secondary market is what I tell people. So like you've got your consistent like virtual one if you live in California or just like a smaller market. And then you've got Scott, like huge ones you get in California. Every once in a while.
Once a year, you get like a good like flip that you choose to flip or something, and you do it, and you make maybe 60 grand or something. Like, yeah, I can see that.
I love it. So going back to the original question that I wanted to go with, because this whole podcast, like I love reiterating it, is about helping people get over like the initial fears, because I think everyone has some sort of mindset issue, especially when they're starting. Uh,
Mhm.
I even have a few mindset issues still to this day that I'm working through. When you were starting, what do you think your mindset issues were or your fears? And like, how did you deal with that? How did you push through? Um, like, what is your advice to new wholesalers, and what were your mindset issues?
Yeah, well, 100% mindset is so important. And I still deal with mindset stuff too. I almost call it, it's like a practice. You got to really kind of like work on your mindset all the time, because our little monkey minds can take over really quick. If you're not really conscious of it. When I first got started, I absolutely know what my biggest fear was. My biggest fear was getting sued. So
Hmm.
it's like, because I went from like W-2 employee, and I think this is common of W-2 employees, right? Like, oh, well, like my employer got sued. We're in a lawsuit. Like, I don't know,
Hmm.
somewhere in my working career, I heard about lawsuits and how they just ruin your life. Like, that was all I heard, is like lawsuits ruin lives.
Right.
So my biggest fear was getting sued, for sure.
Interesting. So,
Mhm.
okay, so it was getting sued. Like, do you can you think of where it comes from? Because I always think it's very interesting where certain mindset issues come from in general. Of like, that's an interesting one in the sense of like fear of being sued. So, two questions: where do you think that came from, and then also, how'd you get over it?
Okay, I don't know. I've never really put much thought into like where it came from. If I had to guess, it was a job I had where the employer was getting sued and he was so
Interesting.
dramatic about it. Like,
Hmm.
he was just so like acted like it was the worst thing in the world. I mean,
Right.
he really like, and he did all these things in his business after to prevent getting sued again. Like, he just went like the complete opposite direction. No joke. He even went to the lengths of putting cameras in the office and building the
Oh my
office out. So all the walls are windows. Like, so like the
Wow.
cameras could see through everybody's office. So the entire place was a fishbowl. And it all stemmed from a lawsuit.
Well, that's 100% it. I mean, that
Mhm.
that is where it comes from. I mean, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah,
that's like, I've never even heard of an
I
employer
know.
being so like sensitive to that. It
I know.
makes sense in the sense that that can be like a burden. I'm curious, have you been sued?
Yeah. So that's how I
Okay,
got
so how'd
over
it
it. You were
go?
gonna ask. So part two of that question, part
I
two
love
of that
that.
question was getting sued.
Nice.
is how you get over it, right? How do you get over fears? Is you face them head on. Now
Right.
I didn't purposely try to get sued. I was like a little sheep. Like, it was like my second year in the business. Okay. Like,
Oh no,
literally like
that's
year
rough.
two, like month 14 in the business, not 24. I mean, like year one, and then like going into my second year of the business. um I had a frivolous lawsuit against me.
So what
And
happened?
it was, so I basically bought a bad house. I bought a I it's a it's a little complicated, but I can bring it down to an easy level to understand. And it's
Love it.
important to understand it, okay? So I went to a real estate investment association meeting. Back then, that was like all it was RIAs. And you would go like to these monthly meetings, and like there wasn't a lot of Instagram and the stuff you see now, right? I
Hmm.
went to a meeting. I met this guy was presenting. He was a note trader. So what he would do is he would buy and trade notes on properties.
Right.
He would. So after the meet, I got to.
Real quick,
Oh yeah,
sorry. Just quickly explain what a node is, just because I want it to be as basic as
basic. Okay,
possible.
I knew. I was like, I'm gonna have to micro this. Like, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So so when you get a mortgage on the property, that's considered a note. Just like think of it like that. Let's just
It's
dumb it
debt.
down, right? Your mortgage is essentially a promissory note that you are going to pay this bank back. Well, people invest in those too. So
Mhm.
what he would do is he would find people that had a second mortgage that was in default, meaning
Mhm.
like they did not pay their second mortgage. So the
Right.
house was going into foreclosure. He would contact the note holder of that second mortgage if it happened to be a private individual. So he wouldn't do it if it said Wells Fargo, but if it said John C. Trust, whatever, he would contact them and he'd say, hey, how about instead of foreclosing on this house, I'll just buy this note right off of you. So he
Mhm.
would buy that note off of John C. Trust or whatever. He would now he kind of controls the property. So this homeowner has two options. She either has to pay him back, and avoid her foreclosure, or he can foreclose on the property. Now the hope
Okay.
is that there's equity in the property, so he gets the property back. You
Mhm.
kind of follow me? I know there's a lot to that.
I think people got it. I think that's
That was,
good.
I
A
know that
good
was
enough
like, that could be
explanation.
heavy. That's, it's like, if you don't understand note
If
trading and
people
stuff.
have questions, just type it
But
in the
yeah,
chat.
type it in the chat, or like Google note trading and buying, selling notes and stuff. So that's what he did. And he said, he came up to me, hey, how are you? Whatever. We got to know each other. And he's like, you're a flipper. It's funny. I might have a house I'm taking back in Garden Grove. And when I take it back, I'm not going to want to fix it up. I'm going to sell it to an investor. So like, maybe I can sell it to you. Perfect. I was like, yes, let me know. So a couple weeks later, he calls me. He's like, hey, just letting you know, I took that house back. We got it in the foreclosure. Would you be interested? I said, okay, sure. So I made him an offer for the property. I still remember it was like 225,000, I think was the
Mhm.
amount, something like that. This is back in the day when prices didn't go crazy in California yet. It was,
Right.
I want to say like 2012, 2013 or something.
Okay.
And I so I bought the property from him, totally like legally through title and escrow, everything, did all the things. And he said, okay, the only thing is you're going to have to evict her. I'm not dealing with the eviction. You take care of her. You have to evict the previous
The
homeowner.
worst thing in California ever.
Yeah. It's really not that bad, honestly. Like I feel like
Is
eviction,
it?
no, it's not that bad. But I guess everybody has tolerance. That's subjective, right? To me, evictions aren't that big of a deal.
We're
But
gonna we're gonna talk about that
yeah,
because I need
you
to.
have some sort of, you have some
Mm.
trauma, or you have something in your head about evictions, or
Well, I just
same.
really have no idea. People just tell me things, right? I assume that like in California, it's incredibly hard to do an eviction. Like
Yeah,
in some places, almost impossible. And I'm mainly wholesale. Like I've
yeah,
done a couple flips, but like I've never done an eviction. So
yeah.
you're the first person who's told me it's not really that big of a
It's
deal.
not that
So
big of a deal.
I
Yeah.
love that. So I
It's
would
not.
definitely want to keep hearing
It's
this
just
story.
like you
So.
have a belief, right? You have a limiting belief because someone told you it, and so
Well,
it's in
yeah,
your
I have no
head.
idea. I've never done it before,
Right.
so I love
Just
it.
like lawsuits ruin your life, right? Like
Right, there
no,
we go. And then you just got
yeah.
to do it and it's not as bad.
And then you're like,
So,
oh, that wasn't even that bad. And so, and no, and trust me, if they were that bad, now I will, okay, I digress though. The COVID situation, that's a whole other thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking
right,
about the memorandum or anything. I'm just talking about just basic like evictions under normal climates, like
right,
not that bad. Like you'll live. You'll live
right.
through it.
Love it.
But so I said, okay, fine. I've evicted before, not a big deal. So I serve her a cash for keys. I always offer cash for keys first. I said, hey, I'll pay you like $2,500 if you just leave and make it easy.
Right,
Or I'm gonna have to evict you. Here's your date that you have to be out. Blah 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 blah.
right.
I get a phone call from her, and she is like, you are going to be pulling my dead body out of that house if you think that I'm going to be leaving. And this was a fraudulent foreclosure. There's no way you rightfully own this house. And so she got me. Now, this is because I was new and I didn't fully understand everything. Like, I
Hmm.
kind of believed her. She had me going.
Right.
She said that the foreclosure never happened. It was fraudulent. I don't know how you bought this house. There's no way. Um, like there's so much behind this house. You have no idea what you got yourself into. You've been defrauded as well. All this stuff, right?
But you had gone through title, right? Like when you bought
Yeah.
it.
But
Okay.
when you've only been doing this business like 13 months, like
Right.
what do you know? like I'm
Right.
like, really? Like I literally believed her. Like I
It
was
was
like,
also just sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
it was also like there wasn't nearly as much education in like
no.
2012, right? Like I mean, like now there's gurus freaking everywhere. Like you can learn so much on YouTube. I feel like I don't even know what was on YouTube at that point.
Not much, but it doesn't matter if all you did was wholesaling. Like Jonah, put yourself in the shoes of someone who's only been in this 13, 14 months and you
Right.
bought a house. You didn't wholesale it. You bought the home.
Yeah.
And then the old
Rough.
person says, no, 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 no. That foreclosure, there's stuff before that happened that this property is going to be in litigation and you're stuck with it. Like
Mhm.
that's all I was told is basically everything that happened before you it was fraudulently done and I'm already getting an attorney and now you just bought it. So now you're screwed too.
The
Like that's what
worst.
she was telling me. I was like, okay, then this is a real thing. Unwinding foreclosures is something that some people do that they try to
Mhm.
unwind for. What she was trying to attempt was to unwind her foreclosure.
Right.
So, but what's unfortunate is like when you foreclose and it gets to this state, now there's this person here that's like stuck holding, the hot potato, like,
Right.
and I'm like, what? I had no idea. So here's a couple things I did wrong, right? First of all, I stayed on the phone with her. I should have never given her my phone number. I should have
Hmm.
never, no, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like I should have just like put everything in writing. If you need to talk, you can email me. But I didn't know better. So that phone call was important in my case. Fast forward
You
after the
recorded the phone call?
no, I
Oh,
wish I would have.
okay.
I wish I would
Okay.
have, and I wish I would. Yeah, I do. I wish I would have had the ability to do that, but no. So fast forward a couple weeks later, she says basically, if you try to take this home from me and you try to kick me out, I'm gonna sue you too. But
Right.
I'm already suing the person that sold your house, this house to you. And I was like,
Right.
okay, like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, leave you in here for free, lady? Like, I don't know.
Right.
So later I got a hold of the guy that sold me the home and he said, no, she's crazy. Like, hello, Lauren, she foreclosed on her house. Like, she's crazy and she's pissed and
Right.
like, whatever. So fast forward, I keep trying to evict her. I go through the whole thing, or I serve her notice, all that. And it's getting now to like, okay, like it's happening. I open up my door and someone goes, are you Lauren Hardy? I go, yeah. And I get served. And I was like,
Right.
what? like,
Right.
and it was like the scariest moment. I still remember that as probably one of the most awful moments of my life. Like just
Mm.
pure fear, just not knowing. And this thing was
What
this
would
thick.
happen?
This thing was this thick. It
Damn.
was heavy. Like I was like winded carrying it. It was so heavy. I was like, oh my God. And
Right.
you got to imagine, I'm a mom. I'm like 26 or 27. Like I'm not that old. I'm a mom. My little kid's like, mom, who's that? Like, it was like, right. Like, when my kids are home, my daughters, one of them's napping, the other
Right.
one's 3 years old. She's like, mommy, what's that? And I'm just like, I can't talk
What
to
a
you.
wild thing. Like, I mean, I don't have kids, but I would imagine being like, oh God, like, I don't even know what I'm going to say to you right now. You wouldn't understand it. And I also really don't want to tell you anyways.
I was literally like, I remember she's like, I still remember this moment because she was in this process of making a box into an airplane. So then
Interesting.
she was just like, what's that? I don't care. Make me an airplane. Like, and I was
Right.
like, okay. And I'm like
I
hacking at
love
this box with like a knife, trying to make an
Mhm.
airplane. And I just put cause you can't, it's crazy when you have kids, y'all listening who have children get this, right? It doesn't matter. You can have a gun to your head. You're like, or I'll just make this airplane that my 3-year-old's demanding right now.
Right.
So I'm making her some paper airplane or the box airplane thing. And I'm like panicking. I have to wait until she can go to sleep so I can like compose myself and actually open up the first page of this thing. And I read about 2 pages and I'm about to pass out. I'm just like,
Damn.
I see the words like Lauren Hardy, fraud, conspiracy. Like she said, I
Conspiracy.
conspired, swear to God. She said, I conspired with the previous note holder. We conspired to steal her home.
Damn.
and that like as soon as he took the house back, I bought it so quickly because that we conspired to do that. So the reason behind that is there's a protection called me being what's called a bona fide purchaser. So technically we could have won this at the motion, which meant like we can squash it real quick. It would have gotten, they call it quashed, like quick, because I was a bona fide purchaser. It was like, sorry, lady, like you got yourself in this. That's just the way the law works. It's like,
Right.
if you let it get this bad and then some poor innocent person purchased your house, well, too bad, it's not her fault. Like, and you're just
Right.
gonna have to lose your home, like, and
Yeah.
deal and civilly sue the other person, but you've lost the house. Well, she tried to argue the bona fide purchaser by saying that I fraudulently conspired with this guy to immediately buy it, but there was preemptive, like I knew about this house before, even though, like, you know, I could prove I didn't even know the guy before.
Right.
So it was so when you're getting frivolously sued, what a common technique an attorney will do is they will put multiple causes of actions, which is basically throwing, you know, spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. So there was like 13 causes of actions. Like,
Right.
I'm like 13 things I did wrong in like a span of like a week. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and all of them were ridiculous. All of them were just awful. It was awful
Yeah.
having to go through it.
I get it. So
Mhm.
let me ask you real quick. So, I mean, obviously you said like you're panicking, like you can't go to bed, like something is happening that's like truly screwing with you. So, how did you deal with that? Because obviously you can't get too many nights without sleep. So,
Mhm.
like, what? Because I really want to get into, because I think I've had moments like that of like pure terror at some
Mhm.
point. Like I had it, like this is my own story. Is I had someone threaten to sue me, but it was back when it was like they didn't actually sue me, but they threatened to sue me, and I hadn't done a single deal yet. So like I
Oh.
immediately was just like, okay, I'm not doing this. I do not have the resources to defend myself whatsoever.
Mhm.
So um, I really do want to get into the emotional side, especially about like
Yeah.
how did you deal with um, that terror? I
Yeah.
would say.
For sure. So there's phases. The first, like, I remember just like Googling how to get through a lawsuit, like emotion. I literally Googled and I read an article about it. And I remember
Oh,
this
nice.
article said the only way to get through it is to get through. Like,
Right.
that's it. You have to get through, and you have to understand that this is going to be a very long process.
Hmm.
And it's just something like you're going to have to endure. So the first stages of this, I would say stages like week 1, week 2 was like crying. Like I cried. I remember crying to my
Oh, no.
mom, like just crying all the time. Like I told my friends when it first happened, I told my friends, I'll never forget this. Like, your friends who aren't business owners, they don't get it. They're
Oh,
like, well,
that's like the worst idea. I
don't
feel
ever tell your
like.
friends that aren't business owners. They won't understand. Like, I remember they're like, well, Lauren, you had to do something wrong to get sued. Like, nobody just gets
That's
sued.
the worst.
You had to have
What
done something wrong. You know,
what
like,
terrible advice.
I
Like that's
know.
so bad. Like we
Yeah.
should get
So
into that too after this is like why you don't tell friends who aren't in the business
yeah.
anything or expect any advice from them. But sorry, keep going.
No. Yeah. So don't tell your friends. You know, the first thing I did, I'm very lucky. I have a very smart dad. So
Hmm.
I couldn't even read the lawsuit. It was too, I can handle a lot. And this was like, I couldn't.
Right.
Like, I'm like, Dad, I can't read this. I need you to tell me what I'm being sued for. It's like, I'm gonna
Okay.
lose my mind. It's literally 1,000 pages long, and like I can't handle it. Like, I see fraud and conspiracy, and I'm gonna throw up. Like, so I went to my dad's house, and my dad's very stoic, and he's very just
Nice.
cool, calm, and collected. So he's like, I still remember him just being like, all right, let's take a look. Like, just had a
Yeah.
good attitude about it. It was just kind of almost like proud of me in a way, like that I'm going through
That's
it.
cute.
You know, like he's just like, I got this. It's fine. Let me see
Wait,
this.
real
Yeah.
quick. I'm gonna interrupt just because I'm curious. So, like, your dad, was he a business owner, or like, why do you was that just always his attitude of like keeping cool when stuff was going on? I'm just curious.
He's a pretty cool cucumber.
Okay.
And he was a college professor and he had a rental portfolio. But he wasn't like a full-blown entrepreneur. He had his rental portfolio and he day trades, like he's a stock trader. Like so he has like
Okay.
some entrepreneurial ventures, but like I would say not full-blown business owner.
Gotcha.
So but he did have rentals. So, you know, like he did have stuff that he had to deal with, you know, in real
Right.
estate. But no, cool as a cucumber. And so I just waited for his email back and he put down in an Excel document all of like just the things, like kind of the high level points in it. So I could just digest it a little easier, you know, like
Right.
being sued for this, like cause of action 12, this, like
Right. Right.
whatever. So like, okay, I understand now what I'm being sued for. And yeah, so first stage was just crying and I lost like 7 pounds or something, which wasn't the worst
Oh
thing in the world. Like,
no.
yeah, I couldn't even eat. I was like, oh my God.
Damn.
Super stressed. And then I found an attorney. My friend recommended an attorney and I, you know, had a meeting scheduled and it's like everything takes forever. It's like, okay, we'll meet with you next week. I'm like, why can't you meet with me now?
Right.
And you know, so met with an attorney. Luckily, the attorney had figured out that much of my case is very much covered under title insurance. So
Right.
he's like, he does title insurance work for the title insurance company I use. So he was like, I'll get your case assigned to me and I'm going to get it all paid for. So my
Nice.
attorney fee, that was like the first, like, okay, you got to look for like when you're in that situation, sort of like, well, okay, there's a bright side here, bright side there. There's always little wins. And that was a massive win, was like my attorney fees were covered. So I was
Something
really,
I have a question for you because this is also an educational point.
mhm,
If title, like, because they were suing you over something that happened before
mhm,
you bought it, right?
mhm.
In theory, no matter what, like, let's say that lady was 100% right, wouldn't the onus be on title to have found that out, correct? Like, in the way, wouldn't you be able to sue title for screwing that up? I think that's how it would work. I don't know if you.
Yeah. Yes, you would think. Okay, so normally, but when they put 13 causes of action, they also include like personal damages, like
Okay.
$90,000 in my, you know, stress
Right.
because I was stressed out
Whatever.
and, you know, whatever, emotional
Bunch of
duress.
BS.
So, um, technically, that the what I would have been recouped, but there were other things she put in there that were, you know, so that I would
Nothing
not
to
have.
do with it. Gotcha.
Right. Yeah, and that's what they do. Throw spaghetti on
Right.
the wall. They try to bury you. They bury you.
Right.
That's what they do. So I was getting buried. Yeah. So but if it's very straightforward title stuff that happened all before you, and it falls under your title insurance policy, then yes, you technically get recouped the purchase price of the property and stuff, and the property, you know, whatever. Like
Gotcha. I was
they
just
pay for
curious.
it. No, you're right, but just
Okay.
not in this situation. So
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So and you know, it's so crazy because I remember I thought about this lawsuit every day, multiple times a day. I would stress
Mhm.
about it. And after like about 2 weeks, I go, okay, well, I better make a lot of money because I'm going to probably have to pay for something. Like this is going to get real
Mm.
expensive. So I just came up with a plan instead of worrying and like wallowing in my pity and giving up and like getting out of the business altogether. I was like, no, I'm going to make money. Like
I love it.
I'm going to figure out how to do the most deals I've ever done because back is against the wall. I need to make sure I make enough money to pay for whatever I just got into. So
What made
it,
that switch? I'm curious, like
uh,
what switched in your mind from just panicking, crying, all of that to like, all right, screw this. I'm going to do just as many deals as I possibly can. So even if I completely lose this, I'm going to be fine.
I mean, I don't know. I think I'm a pretty logical person. And it was like, okay, option one is just like stress, quit, and go get a full-time job again and just like be miserable again, or like just try a little harder and make more money and this lawsuit won't even matter. You
Right.
know, like, and I just picked the better one, right? The better
Right.
one is
Obviously.
obviously the one here, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So I just put a lot of focus into my business, and I focus on the money making activities of my business. That deal, I did more flips, you know, that year than like I ever did. I raised my
Hmm.
deal volume count significantly that year. So I had also heard, see, the thing was, is after like, you know, a couple months of this, because you think like a lawsuit's going to be over. Like you're like, oh no, okay, this will be over in 2 months.
Right.
No, like, no. Lawsuit didn't get dismissed. Like I thought it was going to get dismissed. It didn't. Then it goes to motion, a motion to summary judgment. Didn't win there. And like
Hmm.
just that process took 8 months. So like now they're trying to get it into trial, right? Like
Right.
when I started realizing, yeah, you're in this for the long haul. You almost, after a while, like you've just adjusted to like this thing, that this
Right.
weight on your shoulder. Like it's a weight on your shoulder, and at first it's crippling and you can't walk. And then eventually you start getting up a little bit and you're like, like, okay, I'm walking, but
Right.
it's a huge weight. And then eventually you grow some muscles and you can hold it and you're fine and you keep walking and you're like, it's eventually going to go away. And it did. It took 18 months. And I remember being like, there was a point where I go, you know, I haven't thought about my lawsuit in 3 days.
Nice.
You know, like you get to that point. And I imagine this is for anybody who's maybe dealt with illness, cancer, you know, any kind
Hmm.
of terrible thing, a divorce, any kind of traumatic situation. That's the best
Life goes
analogy.
on.
Life goes on.
Eventually you have to make it where like you just
Mhm.
keep pushing forward. Like
Yeah.
I totally get that in the sense I haven't
Mhm.
dealt with something that lasted 18 months that was freaking me out. But yeah, I mean, there's just got to be a point where it's like, well, screw it. It's just there. What's
Yeah.
gonna happen is gonna happen. Um, I'm curious, like in the sense of actually keep going in the story, and then I'm gonna ask this question. Like I got a question in the back of my mind, but
Yeah.
I want to hear the resolution first.
Well, okay. Another thing that I did that was really beneficial to me is I really took the time to understand law and how lawsuits work. I mean, every element of it. Like
Mhm.
I basically took a course in law school. Like
Right.
I was like, I went all in. Like I need to know all the things, what this is, what's this step, what's that mean, what these words mean. And that made me feel really empowered.
Mhm.
And I remember telling myself, I go, man, but you know what? I'll probably never get sued again. Or if I do, like, I'm going to be in better shape. Like, I'm going to understand everything. I'm going to know in my business things to not do to make sure I don't get sued. So I'm very careful. Like, I don't, I'm very careful in my business. Like, now,
Mhm.
because of that experience, like, I know, like, there's certain things you got to be careful and don't do, you know, and
Right.
like talking to a crazy lady on the phone, you know, like I
Right.
now know, like put that in writing, everything's in writing. And, you know, so I learned a lot. And 18 months later, she tried to push it to trial. It did not make it. There's this one step before trial. I always forget what it's called. Some conference. I don't remember what it's called at the top of my head right now.
Mediation? I don't know.
No, it's not mediation. This isn't mediation. Mediation's like you
Is
don't
it
go to lawsuit at all.
right? Gotcha.
Um, it's a pretrial conference, something like that, like pretrial
Something.
conference or something, where you meet with a judge, like a judge. There's a judge that does this, and he meets with both parties, and his goal, like his job, is to avoid trial because it's costly on the state. So his, like, what he does is he speaks with both parties in a room, quiet little room, and he looks at like your case, studies it, whatever, and he tells which party, like, hey, you have a good chance of winning. Hey, you're a loser. Like, you're
Right.
never going to win this. Don't waste your time. You're going to spend all this money. Like, he tries to convince the person, you know, to kind of just
Stop.
drop it and settle and settle. And the goal is at the end, you settle. And most cases don't go to trial.
Right.
Um, because of this conference. So we made it to that. And he said to her, you have no chance of winning. Like, you know, that there's no chance, like you will never win this. And he came to us, like, just kind of like what I remember being all nervous and we're like locked in the room and he's just laughing. He's like, there's no way she's going to win. Like,
Nice.
and I told her that, like, she's never going to win this. This is so frivolous. Like, my God, like, who's this attorney that filed it? And it looked really bad on the attorney. Like, you know, like it was just like, you know, attorneys that take on these cases are so low rent. And so anyway, we settled for like $4,000. Like, and my title company paid that. So like title will tell your attorney, like, here's the limit, negotiate up to this. Like, and so he had an amount to play with. And he just said, like, she was like, I'll settle for $90,000. And he was like, $4,000. Take it or leave it.
I love that. I love that a lot. I love that story because I really like what you said about the muscles, right? Because I really feel like that's how people should really think. I have this saying, I think I said this in the last podcast, where I mean, I didn't come up with this. I heard this from someone, where there's only two ways to motivate someone. It's desperation, or like, I'm forgetting the word, but it's like, it's either desperation or like the wanting of a reward. Right. And ideally you have both, like, aspiration. It's aspiration and desperation. So obviously, like, it's great to have the aspiration. You want to do great things in the world. You want to, you know, strive for more, feed your family, like help others feed their family, all of that. But then there's desperation. And I think desperation is more important. Like, whatever it is, like, I think comfort really screws people a lot. And I really feel like desperation, like, I mean, like, for instance, like, how many extra deals, like, I'm curious if you might even be a little bit grateful for it because A, you got stronger, and B, like, how many extra deals do you think you did?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm super grateful. I don't remember, like, I remember before that date, it was like I flipped 2 houses my first year. And then it was like 3 my second year. And then while going through, because it was like I got sued, then like going through the lawsuit, it was like the 3rd year. I don't remember the exact amount, but I want to say I actually flipped 11 to 15, something like that.
Wow.
And actual flips, like they weren't wholesales.
I mean, you quintupled your volume.
Yeah,
You
like quadrupled
to quintuple.
Crushed it. Yeah. Was like, I'm going to be a very aggressive buyer, and like crushed it. And
I love it.
Yeah, just because that. And then this is the best part of the story. So the real estate market was like just skyrocketed while I held that house. So I ended up making a ton of money on that home, and I was fine.
Love it.
Yeah, I flipped it. It was fine. I lived, and business is an intellectual sport. It really is. And all of this stuff is all stuff in your mind, all of it. And all of that was just all of those fears. It was just my stuff in my mind. If you could kind of like say like, hey, like when you die, like this really won't matter. Like, even like, I also would say, another quote I say a lot when I'm going through hard times is, in 5 years, is this going to matter?
It's so true. It's so true. It's just so hard when you're in it at the beginning to get over it. But it's so true in the sense of like, even if you had lost it, like, even if you had like completely lost that lawsuit, you still probably would have been fine in the end. It would have sucked, but like you still would have been like doing fine, making money in the business. Like, it is, I feel like those are the keys, like going, I think that's a really good trick, is like being like, will this matter in 5 years, or will this matter when I'm dead? Right. Like, there's so many more important things, like hanging out with my children, or being with your parents, or being with family and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that little nugget too. So amazing. So, okay. That really jumpstarts your business. I'm curious, because this is also something, because you're a mentor. You've mentored a ton of people already, because you were part of Wholesaling Inc., which, guys, is like a huge, like, Brent Daniels owns it. It's like a huge group. What is it exactly? Actually, it's like a group, right?
I would call us a media company. You know, we sell real estate education. So it's a real estate education company, but they owned a podcast called Wholesaling Inc. And that's that piece of media was really their number one source of customers.
So how, because like the question is, all these are kind of related questions of the sense of, so when did you know, or when did you get a mentor? Because I think this is like also very important for newer wholesalers or newer flippers or just real estate investors in general, of being like, all right, what made you get a mentor? When did you get a mentor? And like, how soon do you think somebody should get a mentor? Because in my journey, that made all the difference, was the fact
Mhm.
that I joined people's mentorships like Jamil
Yeah.
Danji and Pace Morby and stuff like that. So tell us a little bit about your story with mentorships.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like my brother was my mentor, right? So he was flipping
Mm-hmm.
2 years before me. So my first 2 deals I did with my brother, he taught me all of it. I did take some education. Back then it was like, this is 10 years ago. So there was like no online courses. They would come in CDs and
Oh
you
my
would get
God.
these little CDs and you would listen to them like in your car.
I love it.
That was like how old school I am here. Um, so that was I definitely leaned into education from day one. Day one. I don't think I wouldn't have been able to do the business at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone, I back then YouTube University wasn't exactly what it is now. Like there's a lot on YouTube.
Right.
Um, so I think YouTube can be helpful. But what I truly believe about YouTube is that it gives you inspiration, but it does not give you direction,
Right.
big picture. So you can get real distracted on YouTube and it's like, oh, well, this person says this, and then this person says to do that. And the next thing you do, you just keep doing all these different things and nothing works because you have no direction. So mentorship is extremely important.
So what do you recommend for somebody to do? Like, maybe we should take people in different positions, right? Because I have my philosophy on it, but I'm curious about yours of like, okay, this person doesn't have any resources yet. This person has some resources. Like, two things: how do you find a mentor, and um, when should you find a mentor? It sounds like your answer might be with the when, as soon as possible. But like,
ASAP.
how do you choose a mentor, and how do you find one?
There's 2 different ways to go about this, right? There's the mentor that like is just somebody you met. Maybe it's like a friend of yours that's doing the business. And like that's probably the most ideal scenario, right? I fell into like the
Mm-hmm.
best. My brother hooked me up and like I didn't have to pay for it. And it was great. If you don't have a friend that's in the business, then the other step is like paid education. And being that I come from education, I understand like that world. Um, I think there are a lot of really, really great education programs out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all helpful as long as you do exactly what the educator says to do.
Mm-hmm.
I will say there's tiers of education that I would avoid. I would avoid the really expensive $20,000. Like I went to a
Right.
seminar. Like they still get people, man. I don't know, like they do, and that's
Right.
I've had a lot of students come out of those ones and then they come to me and I didn't charge nearly that much. And so I think the really expensive education, you're not necessarily getting anything better. In fact, sometimes the less expensive one, because they don't have this big marketing outfit behind them, might be even better. Usually those courses that are in that like $7,000, $12,000 price points because they had to spend a lot of money in Google ads to let you know who they were,
Right.
in digital marketing ads, and they have staff and all that.
Right.
So don't let cost, the more isn't necessarily the better program.
Right.
Okay. Like, don't like, oh, but this program is $10,000. It must be better. Not true. Not
Mm-hmm.
true at all. So absolutely. Like the other thing is, find someone like an educator that's living a life that like you want to live. Um,
Mm.
I think that there's educators out there. Okay. So like, here's my brand, right? This is what people know me for. I've been told like, like you seem just so real. You're not like, oh, $1 million wholesaler, you're gonna make millions, and like,
Right.
no, like I'm just like, so do you want to quit your full-time job?
Right.
Like, that's I'm not like selling the moon, and I don't necessarily care. Like I'm not money focused. I'm more of like I wanted time freedom. So a lot of people respect that, like, oh, you had kids, like you have kids, and like you got in this business when they were young, and like you figured out how to quit your full-time job. And now you have like time freedom and you get to pick up your kids from school, and like you still
Mm,
really value like work life balance. You're not all like money, money, money. I want to be a multimillionaire. You're more like, I just want to have a really good life, and I want to live well.
hmm.
I want to have an enriched life, not necessarily a rich life, right? Um,
Interesting. I like that a lot.
some people really identify with me in that way. But it's funny, like being in the education space, I see like some people, they want the glitz and the glamour and the million
Hmm.
dollars and the boats and the I bought a mansion, and like, and some people like that educator, and that's the life they want. And like, that's great. Like it's all good. Just find someone that like you relate to, and that you want to kind of aspire to be like.
I love that. That's such a good answer.
Mhm.
I think so. You're so right in the sense of like so many people get into the business also being like, I really want to get rich, when really like whatever the hell makes you happy, right? Like
Mhm.
if you want, like, spending time with your children is like amazing. Like I love
Mhm.
that. Like I love that, and I also love the advice of finding a mentor that fits what you want, right? Because
Mhm.
I think that's something, I think that's the hardest part for people, is they don't vet their mentors at all in that way
Mhm.
whatsoever. So that's going to be my next question too, is like, how do you vet a mentor, or like how do you make sure they're not, because I mean, like, let's be real, there are people where it's borderline scammy, like, not,
Yeah.
they're probably not scams, but like very much like I paid 20K and got um,
Yeah.
a dictionary of real estate. So
Yeah.
how do you vet somebody?
Yeah, that it can be challenging because the mentor's not gonna have time to talk to you on the phone. Like, we're
Right.
just not. Like, I'm really doing deals, guys. Like, I would get, I get from time to time like the DM, like, can I pick your brain and can I talk to you
Yeah.
before I buy your program? I'm like, no, because I'm busy. And if I did that for everybody, I couldn't actually buy houses. And don't
Right.
you want someone that actually buys houses? Like,
Right.
like education's not my primary, buying houses is number one for me. Like, so I it's tough, right? So what I did personally is I put reviews on my review page.
Hmm.
I have reviews. I have on my YouTube. You can go on my YouTube. My course page had a bunch of reviews. I have YouTube's like done with my students, so like it kind of builds some credibility. That I have some successful students in my program. So like that's helpful. So like look to see like, do they have any kind of like testimonials, video testimonials, like podcasts that like they've done with students, something like that, to kind of prove that they've had some successful students.
This is also
Um,
something that, like, I don't know if you do this. Like, by the way, guys, Lauren has a program 100%. She's an amazing person and mentor. Like, I guarantee it. So we're going to put that in later if you guys want to join that. But I mean, this is just a curiosity. Like, this is my brain going off. Have you ever had it where maybe instead of you they talk to, you're like, here, talk to my student, like let them tell you how good the program is? I'm just curious.
at the end of the podcast that I would do with my students, they would drop like their email. So some of them have said that people will reach out just before they bought, So yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you know Dahlia, but like I think this is funny. I don't know if this is like an
I
inside
I
joke.
think I'm not sure if she's the same person, but there is an inside joke about the way I sneeze. I have a very silent.
Wait, what's, it's just like impossible, like, no, you don't, you can't hear anything?
I know it's just very quiet. I have a very quiet sneeze.
Hilarious. I love that. Anyways, I didn't mean to distract you. Um, so vetting mentorships, just, I got you. So cool. Okay, so I want to keep going with your story then. So going into your story a little bit more, you get motivated by that lawsuit, like very much the desperation like kicks into gear. You're dealing with that. So how'd you end up with Wholesaling Inc?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Do you want the real story, or do you want just like the light sky, like
No, I want the
high
real
level? You
story.
want to hear
I
the funny
definitely
part,
want
the
the
funny
real.
story?
I want all
Okay.
of it.
Okay. It's just to me, it's like it's just funny. So I never thought about being in education at all. That was never something I aspired to do. I didn't know what an influencer was. My Instagram prior to getting into the education side of real estate was like pictures of my kids and like a puppy. Like, so that tells you how into social media I was. I was going through a breakup, and it was like just a bad breakup. If you ever anyone who's ever like gone through a really bad breakup, right? Like you become a little unhinged. And I remember like the person was not particularly nice to me.
Right.
So I just wanted to show that I am okay. Like I just
Right.
was like, I am okay. Right. So like, but I wasn't going to be like most girls who was like going to put it on social media. Like, you know how the girls like break up with their boyfriend? They always have like,
Yeah.
there's always this like 1 month of social media posts where they're like, just like on a boat and hiking and eat, praying and
Yeah.
loving, whatever. I was like, no, that would be too
Right.
obvious.
Yeah, I got it.
So instead, I was like, I'm going to go on a podcast tour.
Love it. I
So
love
I
that.
just called anyone I knew that had podcasts. And I was like, I just got to get myself out of this. I got to get myself out of this, just crappy breakup feeling. And I need to
Right.
get out there and like show that I'm okay, show myself that I'm okay. And so I called my friend Brent Daniels. I was like, hey, you got a podcast and I've not been on it yet. And he's like, why don't
Wait,
you
wait,
get on?
wait, wait. How'd you know Brent Daniels? I feel like that's like I mean, like in my head, that's not somebody who usually just gives out their number. Like, tell me that a little
Oh,
bit.
I just knew him through the industry. Someone introduced us like years prior to that time
Okay.
before he started TTP. So I just
Okay.
knew him. Yeah, I was just
Okay.
friends with him. And yeah, it's so funny. I actually tried to put a group together once, and then I just didn't have the tenacity to keep it going. But I put a Facebook group together once, and Brent was in it, and Brent presented like on his business. And I had not looked at that Facebook group in years, and I just happened to still have it on Facebook. And I looked and I see a comment from Brent, like pre-TTP, like it was
Yeah.
so funny. He was like, whoa, that was really cool. Like a time capsule.
Yeah, that's cool. I
But
like it.
anyway, so anyway, I called him, got on the wholesaling podcast, and after that, it was so funny. Brent goes, "Hey, so what's been going on? Like, what are you up to?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna like do this." I was like talking about like maybe like the Burr method or something. I don't know. I was like talking about some other shiny object I was thinking of doing,
Right.
and he goes, "Screw all that. You should be an influencer." And I was like, "What's an influencer?" And he's like,
That's
"You
so
really."
funny.
And that's where it started. He's like, you should do like a course, like you've got some good energy, like, and you've got a niche, like nobody's doing virtual right now. It was before virtual was that trendy.
Yeah.
There
I
wasn't
just
a
want to
lot of
say real
yeah,
quick, I love the fact you like just didn't know what an influencer was.
no, I
Like
didn't know.
that's really funny.
No idea. Had no idea what an influencer was. I was like, what's an influencer? And so, yeah, he just showed me like what that side of real estate education is and what it's about. And I thought, I need a change. Like, why not? Like, let's try something different. I'll learn a lot. And like a week. So I told Brent, like, okay, I'm putting this course together. I start putting the course together. As soon as I told Brent about the course, that I actually like took action and put something together, Tom Kroll texts me out of nowhere. Now that I didn't know Tom Kroll, like I was like, Tom Kroll.
Right.
I got like a text out of nowhere. Hey, bam, it's Tom Kroll. I'm like, what? He literally texts people that, by the way.
That's
Bam, it's
crazy.
Tom Kroll.
That's funny.
And he literally, I got on the phone with him. He's like, hey, like you should like, I was like thinking of just giving my course away for free. I didn't even really I didn't know what I was doing. And he's like, no, like sell it under us and come on our team. So so that's where it worked. And I was an author. They were like my publisher. And yeah, it was like, it's been a really fun ride. I'm actually not with Wholesaling Inc. anymore. So like the new news is that I'm on my own. And it was so hard to like leave and very emotional. Cause like, I just have like nothing but like great memories. And it was like 2.5, it was just like, it's been the last 2 years. It's been such a wild ride and they've taught me like so much. But so now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a lost rhino. I'm an independent rhino now.
So what was like, I don't like, what was there like, why want to leave? Was it more like you just wanted to start your own thing, or like some of the education was like just not for you? Like, I'm just curious.
At the end of the day, I became really burnt out with all the things I had going on. Like I was buying houses, wholesaling houses, flipping houses, and I had an education program, and then I also had to drop 5 YouTube videos a week, and do 1 podcast episode, and then do outside podcast episodes. So it was the filming and the like social media elements of it were taking up a lot of my time. And now my other business is like suffering and not really growing because of all these things. And so I got to this moment you got to start deciding like what you really want to focus on in your life, and where do you see yourself in the next 10 years. And I always saw myself just like doing bigger development projects like that never left. And I'm like, well, if you keep doing the real estate education in that way that you have to do if you're here with Wholesaling Inc. and with kind of just that world in general. Like you're not going to make it if you're not on social media all the time. You're just not. There's too many other educators now in that space. Then like you're going to like, it's like if you don't want to do that, then like you should focus on what you want to do. So now, like I just had to take some time to think about like what I really wanted to do. And it took me a while. Like it was really a tough decision.
So I'm curious, because how did you come to that decision? Because I feel like those decisions are really important, and like the sense of like, okay, like I love this community. I haven't done it with a community yet necessarily, but I've definitely had those moments where I'm like, I need to change something big in my life, and I might have to give up on something, right? Like this reminds me of when I had to give up on, not give up, but like spend way less time with my friends who weren't doing real estate just naturally, right? Because I have to do this business. So tell me a little bit about that process. Like how, like, did you like think to yourself, or like how did you come to that decision? What was the process?
It was really hard. So, the first thing, let me like kind of put some context here. Like I had a very successful coaching program that had over 400 students go through it. And every one of those students I gave a welcome call to. So like you got to think I was on the phone a lot. I was filming videos. Like I was doing a lot. And at first I was like, I got this. I could do this. Like when it first happened, it was 2020, right? And it happened like so fast. And I just was like running off adrenaline. But it's funny because now looking back, I think my body was telling me this is too much, because I was getting sick. I have a thyroid disease, and my thyroid disease went out of control for 2 years. Out of control. And it started right then and there. And I mean, doctor after doctor. I think I saw 6 different doctors and spent $15,000 to heal my thyroid.
Damn.
Like that's how bad it was. Like I was just throwing money at any doctor, witch doctor, voodoo. I was like, I'll do anything. I'll go to a magician like to heal my thyroid.
Isn't that crazy? This is just something I want to, like, the body never lies. This is something that I've learned too, just with like my stress and like I have like anxiety problems, and I'll like even if my conscious brain is telling me I'm not anxious, I have like a prone to sometimes scratch myself. And like, I really like, no, you're scratching yourself. Your body's telling you you're way too anxious right now. You have to do something about this. So I really like that in the sense of like everyone watching this is like, listen to your body. Your body is really telling you. Your mind is probably your prefrontal cortex has no
Mhm.
idea, but your body 100% does.
Yeah.
So just
And
want
it's
to
weird
emphasize
because
that.
I was in such denial. I could not admit to myself that I think my thyroid problem is coming from stress. I just
Mm,
couldn't admit it to myself. And instead I was like, I'll just find a doctor to cure me. And I I powered through it and I just did all the things that everybody expected to me to do. And you know, if someone said jump, I said how high, and I just listened to everybody else. And in the end, I was like, you know, for what? Like, this isn't,
right.
like, this isn't really, all this is doing is just stressing me out. And like, I think I
Mm,
can probably make, I was doing fine before financially, like, like I was like, for money, like, I don't know. And even the money, I'm like, there's a certain amount of money that like makes it motivating. And then there's a certain amount that doesn't. And like,
right.
I was like, I just can't take this on. Like, this is so you asked me, how did I come up with that decision? Well, first I started listening to myself, and my boyfriend, he said, Lauren, after you never, when you're talking about filming YouTube videos or social media stuff or students, anything related to that business, you don't light up. You're not like
Right.
into it. He's like, but when you buy a new house or you're putting a deal together, you light up then. Like when you come
Mm,
downstairs and you're talking to me and you're getting construction questions answered and you're like, whatever. He's like, that's when you get excited and light up. It's like, I can see it. Like, you light up when you do this, you don't when you do that. And I was like,
right.
thank you for telling me that, because I wasn't even aware of that.
Right.
So, yeah. So I said, okay, I need to start deciding what are things that I enjoy doing. And that was really, I was so out of touch because I was listening to other people and doing what other people want out of me.
Mm,
And I was so out of touch with what actually I enjoy. And it has taken, I can't tell you how many months to figure it out and to cut out the other stuff, just delete out the other things that I don't enjoy, like, has been very difficult because you kind of get tangled into stuff as
right.
a business owner. You're like, oh, well, we're working on this project together and we have this launch and we have this. And like, I had to really start untangling and canceling and ending relationships and things. And so it was really tough. One thing that really helped me though, there's this book I really recommend. There's two books I'm going to drop for you guys.
Tell me.
Because if you're a business owner, it's not if, it's when you're going to be in this situation
Okay.
where you have to make a decision. Crossroads, right? There's crossroads, and you're like, do I keep doing what I do, or do I like just cut it off? And it's scary because you kind of don't know what the next path is going to look like, right?
Right.
One was called Design. It's like Design Your Life. I think that's what it's called. It's like a blue cover. So Design Your Life is really good for anyone. It's like it's like lifestyle design. It's all about lifestyle design.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool. The next one is Necessary Endings. And it's really important to be aware of endings and what your relationship is to endings.
Right.
A lot
I
of
spelled necessary wrong, but whatever. Keep
I would
going.
I would have spelt it like that probably. But yeah, necessary endings is a really good one because I figured out that I actually really struggle with ending things, and that's sometimes I get into things and I stay in too long, and it's at an expense to me and my happiness. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
No, I love it. Like 100% feel like I love that we at least starting to end it with like that stuff of like what really matters in the sense of like what do you actually want? Like I mean that's what we're really getting into, right? Is like figuring
Mhm.
out what do you actually want. You see all these crazy people doing all sorts of this gnarly stuff, right? Like a lot of
Mhm.
times the mentors in the business, you're right, claim a lot of things. Some of them
Mhm.
aren't even doing it, but even the people like Brent Daniels who are like just doing crazy amounts of deals and like Pace and Jamil and all of that, like um, they not everybody wants to be them, right? So like you also got to take the advice from I really like what you said of like find the mentor for the life that you want to live.
Mhm.
I think that's really good. So I don't want to keep you here too long because I know it's supposed to be an hour, but I have one last question that I always ask everyone, which is like if you could go back to beginner Lauren day one, it's like you just decided I'm doing real estate, we're doing it, we're finding a flip. What would you tell Lauren then knowing everything that you know now?
Think for yourself.
Explain that a little bit. Go into that.
So I was even talking to my friend about this the other day. He's like, I don't have any mentors. I'm not a part of any masterminds. I just think for myself. And I'm like, and he's crushing it. This guy is doing so well.
Nice.
And I know, like, I'm pretty logical. Like, I'm really good at like collecting data and making a very good logical decision. And honestly, like, I know, like, I'm smart. Like, I'm pretty smart. I'm pretty quick.
Obviously.
But man, I am a trusting little person and I will trust anyone. And I always was like in a coaching program or in a mastermind or in a this or in a that. And all that ends up really being, I think coaching is really good when you first get started. But then there's like this part where you graduate kind of from that. And you got to really learn like how to critically think for yourself. And if you need advice, like consult with maybe other business owners that are in different industries to get ideas, or like outside your industry. Consult with attorneys, consult with like real experts of these different micro elements of your business,
Right.
rather than I hate masterminds. I hate real estate masterminds. I hate them. Every time I ever join them, I regretted it.
Why'd you
I just
regret
hate
them?
them. They're terrible. I just don't like them. I think it's everybody's in the same industry. Nobody really wants to share what they're doing because they're scared that other people are going to steal their ideas.
Right.
And then there's this big, like, who's better than I'm closing 100 deals a year. Well, I'm closing 100 deals a month. Well, I'm closing 100 deals a minute. It's like, no, none of you guys are doing any of those things. Stop lying. I don't like mastermind scene. But I could look back and I've people gotten in my head and given me ideas, and I listened to other people because I thought they're so smart. And like in the end, I'm like, actually that was bad advice and I should have listened to myself. Like I should have like actually said, is this good for me? Because at the end of the day, like people could give you advice, but they don't know if that's good for you, So yeah, I actually wish I listened to myself more than I was always so inclined to ask for advice and ask other people for advice before I listened to myself. And now I'm listening to myself first.
I love that. That's so, I love that. Like, I love the knowing thyself type of things and like listening to yourself, because it's so true. Like people are just so different in the sense, like I try, because people now come to me and like ask me like, how do I get started? What should I do? And I'm like, well, okay, so first off, who are you? You got to tell me who you are first, right? Like I don't like me, I'm super salesy and visionary type. Like, I'll just run my head through a wall to just do things, right?
Yeah.
While like other people are really shy, and I'm like, I don't think you should cold call. I think you should do something like, I don't know, agent outreach or something, whatever, right? So I love that. That's basically where I'm going with it. So, all right, what can my community do for you? Like, what do you want to promote? Where do you do deals? Like, tell me everything you want right now so I can like promote it.
Yeah. So I do deals. I partner with people. I joint venture. We are very good at dispo. We do dispo for people in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boise, Idaho, Southern California, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma City right now. So I just listed off a bunch of places. So if you guys have contracts you're trying to move, I'm either a buyer there or I could help you move them. So why don't you guys, you can go to Sell Real Estate Fast. I actually just created a landing page for this specific thing. I don't even know if it's for sure up yet. So just save the landing page. We literally we threw it up today because I was like, I got to find like a place where people could submit deals. So like sellrealestatefast.com. Yep. Put there. And then if you just want like free resources, I put together free course on wholesaling. So free course on wholesaling.com. It's just a free course. I've got different tools in there, a seller script, just some video modules that you might find helpful. So yeah.
I love it. Okay. So if they want to do deals with you, www.sellrealestatefast.com.
Yep.
And www.freecourseonwholesaling.com. You have a YouTube channel. I know that. So like if
Yeah.
people want to see your YouTube videos, should they just look up your name? Do you want to promote your Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah. So just look me up, Lauren Hardy on YouTube. And then on Instagram, it's This Mom Flips.
Amazing. I love it. So, all right, guys, follow her on YouTube, follow her on Instagram. If you're trying to do deals in, let's see if I remember, Boise, Tulsa, Oklahoma City,
That was good.
Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and SoCal, and like LA.
SoCal. Yeah. And some of those markets, I'm an actual buyer. And then some of them, I just do the wholesaling. So,
And just go to the website, www.sellrealestatefast.com, in order to make that happen. Lauren, any last words?
No, thank you. This was a good episode. I appreciate, going through the mindset stuff. I totally love it. So thank you so much for having me.
I love it too. Thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I remember listening to you while I was driving for dollars. I remember that episode with Steve Trang. So like, it's cool being able to interview you now. And like, I remember helping out your community. So it's cool stuff.
Yes.
So love it. Quick, some announcements, guys. So I'm going to be for the next month, this is going to be the last time the episodes are live. I'm going to do now pre-recording. So the month of November is going to be, it's actually going to be more edited ones of the podcasts I've already done. And then December, we're going to start doing the pre-recordings, releasing them, editing them more cooler and stuff. So just realize this is the last time I'm going to do it live. I might figure out a way to do it where like when I'm doing the pre-recording, it's kind of live, but it doesn't go live to YouTube or Facebook. I'm figuring all of that out. But just realize this is the last one that's live. And I'm trying to remember. Yeah, anyway, so that's the main thing, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Skorch the Fears. I don't remember what episode 47. This is episode 47. So thank you guys for tuning in. And I will see y'all next time.